Hi, this is Steve Adelman, and this is Adelman on Venues. People who are familiar with my stance on baseball know that I am a huge fan. I am sitting in a shrine to baseball that has been my passion for my entire life. And I've been on the fence for most of the last several years about baseball safety and keeping fans safe from foul balls entering the stands and shards of bat that fly in at strange angles and high velocity. I've been on the fence until recently. And recently, I got off the fence because the optics are just terrible. I'm tired of seeing people with blood dripping down their faces. I'm tired of seeing children being carried in their father's arms up the stands during a ball game. I'm tired of seeing ball players with their heads in their hands in grief at what their foul ball has just done. Doubtless, you don't want to see these things either. And so about a month ago in Adelman on Venues, I got off the fence and I said, just because of the optics, even though we still don't have empirical data showing whether ballparks actually are more dangerous or not, the optics have changed. And so for that reason, if for no other, I took a position, which is it's time. It's time to extend netting from foul pole to foul pole without exception because the optics simply are undeniable and they're getting worse and more frequent. And no one wants to see them because they shouldn't happen. But the conversation always would have been better if we had some actual facts to work with, if we had some empirical data. At long last, now we do. So attached to this Adelman on Venues, I'm going to include a link to the website for 538. And 538 has crunched the numbers using data, actual data from 10 ballparks, 11 games, because there's one doubleheader, the 10 ballparks and 11 games that have had the most foul balls fly out of the stadium, or at least off the playing field, of any games this season, this 2019 season. And so the folks at 538 crunched the numbers from 906 foul balls that were compiled by Baseball Savant. So we're actually working with data here. And so using data from Baseball Savant across 11 games in 10 stadiums, 906 foul balls, here's what 538 found. They found, not surprisingly, that roughly half, in fact, almost exactly half of the 906 foul balls, half landed in the area behind home plate or behind the dugouts, the area that is screened. Great. Now that area, much of it is newly screened as of an edict from just a couple of seasons ago by Major League Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred, and that's terrific because that clearly is saving fans sitting behind the dugouts as a result of expanded netting behind the dugouts. Having said that, there still is half of those 906 foul balls. Where did they land? They landed in the area beyond even the recently added netting, beyond the ends of the dugouts, going up the baselines. Almost exactly half of the 906 foul balls during the 11 games during this current season that had the most foul balls, almost exactly half of those balls landed in areas where there is still no netting. What more do we know about this? Were these just soft, lazy foul balls? No, they weren't. For exactly the reason that anecdotally people have been screaming for the last few seasons that these balls are rifling into the stands and people don't have enough time to even put up their hands to protect themselves. It turns out that's actually true. And so using StatCast, the people who tell you the pitch speed in virtually real time when you're watching a game on TV. And oh, it's so much fun to know how many hard-throwing relievers there are now, throwing over 100 miles an hour. But StatCast has another value, which is they actually can be used to track the speed, the exit velocity of a foul ball. And 538 has used that data to determine the following. The half of the 906 foul balls that were tracked during the 11 games in 10 stadiums where the most balls landed in the stands, the half that landed in the areas beyond the netting at the far ends of the dugouts included every single one of the balls that had an exit velocity of 90 miles per hour plus. In other words, all, without exception, all of the most hard hit balls that went into the stands in an area beyond the current netting, in the areas up the baselines. This is what people have been saying anecdotally. This, in fact, is where almost all of the worst injuries that we've seen over the last several seasons have occurred. And now there's empirical evidence to say, yeah, that anecdotal evidence, that's not crazy. That's not anomalous behavior. That's actually statistically borne out by facts. I hate the optics. I hate looking at people who are hurt at ball games because I love baseball and I love going. And in fact, I will be going tomorrow night to Camden Yards to a game which is the ballpark at the #1 position on the leaderboard. The most foul balls that have left the field during any game this season was an Orioles game at Camden Yards, where I will be with my family tomorrow night in an area which is still not protected by netting. Does that make me stupid? Perhaps it does. I'm not usually a needless risk taker, but in this case, I am definitely taking a risk. And I'm concluding, reluctantly, as a baseball fan, I'm not a purist, but I do love the game. I am concluding that that is a needless risk and that it's time to stop making that risk one that is as common as it is. And so now, with the benefit of empirical data, what I've been screaming about that we needed so that everyone could get off the fence, now we have it. Now we have it. Let's use it. And so, for the love of baseball and the love of facts, making decisions based on actual evidence, I believe it is now time, without dispute, without any further argument, it's just time for the netting to be extended fully from foul pole to foul pole at every baseball stadium. And that means not just Major League Baseball stadiums, but also minor league, spring training, fall league, wherever there happens to be baseball played and fans in attendance. What we're seeing is that foul balls, they're faster than people are able to put their hands up. I don't know if we should blame the victims for not paying attention. I suspect there's some element of that. I try to pay attention, but I don't know if I would be able to put my hands up in time to protect myself, much less, say, a child sitting next to me, which is the scenario I'll be in tomorrow night at Camden Yards. And so, for the love of baseball, for the love of facts, for the love of family, let's get this done. It's time. Let's have the netting extended, foul pole to foul pole. This is Steve Adelman. This is Adelman on Venues.